the saint who saved the Boston home. Cordelia Harmon, Phillips Brooks, and the founding of the Boston home. 1880. Massachusetts General Hospital is now almost 70 years old. The winds of change are blowing. Originally established to care for the city's poor, while the affluent were treated at home. The hospital has undergone a transformation. The discovery of ether and the use of disinfectants has resulted in successful operations and a partnership with Harvard Medical School. The hospital has become the acute care setting of choice, resulting in the displacement of those with infectious, incurable, or chronic diseases, including the disabled, who are being released to an uncertain fate and now must fend for themselves. In the sophisticated environs of Boston, there were plenty of options. The lunatic asylum, houses of corrections, and houses of industry and reformation. Lunatic asylums were dreadful, dangerous places. On Rainsford Island in Boston Harbor, the women's workhouse or almshouse was a better choice, but not by much. Around this time, a wholly new option was coming to the fore, a vision of enlightened health care for the disabled, funded by private charity. The Home for Incurables, genteel medical care for the disabled, provided in a home-like environment. In 1882, a visionary leader by the name of Cordelia Harmon was determined to start a home of her own here in Boston. Cordelia was born to John and Mary Harmon on October 20th, 1820 in Topsham, Maine, near Bath, north of Portland. She was the fourth of 5 daughters. As for Cordelia herself, little is known of her early life. We find her living in Cambridge in 1859 with her father. He is a lumber dealer in Charlestown, while she works as an assistant teacher at the Alston Alphabet School. She begins her missionary career in 1860 during a season of personal bereavement following the death of her father. She is encouraged by the rector of Grace Church and becomes the first female Bible reader. At the death of the church's rector, she joins Trinity Church, then located on Summer Street. It is here that she befriends Reverend Brooks. Eventually, she became the agent and secretary of the Ladies' Relief Agency, where she personally visited the needy to assess their situation. She also serves as almoner for the Trinity Church, managing the church's charity for the poor for 20 years, where she became highly trusted and influential. Cordelia had witnessed, through her personal experience serving the poor, the need for a home for the disabled, and there was some evidence that one of her sisters too was disabled. And this need is documented in the medical literature of the time. In fact, there was an ongoing debate as to whether Mass General Hospital would pick up this responsibility. But weighing in on this decision were other challenges it had to surmount, namely, the relocating of the then named McLean Asylum for the Insane. It was anticipated that McLean's would be moved from Somerville to Belmont, which eventually occurred in 1895. MGH would neither commit to build a chronic care hospital or pledge its protection of the new hospital for incurables. Cordelia established the Hospital for Incurables in a small house in Brighton, Massachusetts. The house was located on Harvard Place, now Argus Place, across the street from the Cattle Fair Hotel, down the street from the current site of St. Elizabeth's. The task was all-consuming. She raised the money, furnished the house, and hired the staff, while tending to her other responsibilities. Trinity parishioners chipped in with $4,180, and the home formally opened to its patients on December 4th, 1882. On December 17th, 1882, a letter was published in the Boston Medical and Surgical Journal from Dr. Hamilton Osgood. The letter was titled, Hospital for Incurables. On May 25th, 1883, less than 6 months after opening, after giving all she had, Cordelia died of pneumonia. She was 62 years old. The home was left rudderless, a foundling. The medical news of the day talks about the unselfish woman totally devoted to the poor. The Boston Advisor mourns the loss of one of Trinity's most valued members. Cordelia is buried in Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge, next to her mother and father. At Trinity Church, they commissioned a stained glass window done by the noted local artist Frederick Crowninshield. The window itself was removed during a renovation of the parish house in the 1950s. It was sadly dismantled and disposed of. Character may be manifested in great moments, but it is made in the small ones. Phillips Brooks, a Boston Brahmin and descendant of colonial minister John Cotton and Ralph Waldo Emerson, a transcendentalist poet. His parents were Mary Phillips and William Gray Brooks, hence Phillips Brooks, a merging of his parents' last names. Like true Boston blue bloods, he graduated from Boston Latin in 1850 and Harvard in 1855. From there he goes back to Boston Latin to teach, becomes disillusioned, and enters seminary school in Virginia, where he dedicated himself to conveying the life, spirit, and power of Jesus to others. A huge man, standing 6 foot 6 inches tall and weighing over 300 pounds, he's a spellbinding orator who nevertheless speaks with plain language that touches the common man. His 1865 sermon to honor the fallen Abraham Lincoln brings him national attention. In 1869, he becomes rector at Trinity Church, then on Summer Street, where he remains for the next 25 years. On a pilgrimage to Jerusalem in 1868, he wrote the hymn, O Little Town of Bethlehem, an act for which he's best remembered today and recently covered by Mariah Carey, Evie, Sarah McLachlan, and the Vienna Boys Choir, and more famously, Elvis Presley and Nat King Cole. In 1872, Trinity Church is destroyed by the Great Fire. This accelerates the church's plans to build a larger church. Brooks takes responsibility for siting the church and hires a former classmate from Harvard, Henry Hobson Richardson, who has yet to create anything particularly impressive or unique. Brooks rejects the first draft, and the two come up with a unique design to showcase Brooks' style in a majestic setting. Together, they create one of the masterpieces of American 19th century church architecture, Trinity Church in Boston's Copley Square. In 1877, the new church is consecrated. It is considered one of the most beautiful and important buildings in America, ushering in a wholly new style, Richardsonian Romanesque, named for its architect. On December 5th, 1883, less than 7 months after Cordelia's death, Reverend Phillips Brooks gathers a small but influential group of men and women at the Trinity Church to form the Committee for the Establishment of the Boston Home for the Incurables. By September 1884, a little more than a year after Cordelia Harmon's death, the committee raises the funds needed to purchase 2 acres of land with a sizable house from the Codman family of Dorchester. With a suitable location for an expanded facility, the committee realizes Cordelia Harmon's dream. Reverend Brooks dedicates the new home. The Dorchester facility opens in February 1885 with 26 residents, 18 women and 8 men. By 1888, the number of residents had doubled, and 1/3 of the residents were children. Despite filling twice the original number of beds, demand still outpaced the home's capacity. More than 200 names were on the waiting list. Brooks is elected bishop in 1891. When told of his election, he remarks in a self-effacing way, "You've chosen a queer bishop." 2 years later, he is dead at 57. He is canonized as a saint. His will, a $1,000 gift to the Boston Home for Incurables. A book of his memorabilia is sold, establishing the Mary Crescent Fund. And a Phillips Brooks Fund is established. Due to the efforts of a little-known but selfless and visionary woman named Cordelia Harmon and a charismatic, world-renowned preacher named Phillips Brooks, the Boston Home was established and endowed. That endowment continues to support the Boston Home to this day, serving 96 residents and a host of people living in the community. Charity should begin at home, but should not stay there.